So please welcome the incredibly talented Virginia Frischkorn.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. Your website is such an inspiration.
Aw, thank you. I love it. Branding is like a big thing I love, big passion of mine.
Yeah, I mean, it would kind of have to be in the space that you're in.
Yes, beauty's amazing, and not like beauty brands, but beautiful brands and intentional branding. I love it.
Yeah, so it's partytrick.com, right?
Yeah, that's it. Partytrick.com. Where are your party trick?
So go check it out. Party trick. So tell us a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
Oof, why? So I have always been a connector and a maker of experiences. And the first part of my career was spent in the luxury and ultra luxury event industry. And I think honestly, it comes from the joy of connecting people and creating these experiences. I grew up in a family that entertained and hosted. I realized it was something that was really easy for me, and I was really good at it. And I would always be confused when people would say, oh my God, that's so hard, that's so stressful. And yes, it is still stressful, but it is something that comes naturally, managing the chaos with this ultimate goal of like the greater good. So that's like the larger, but what I do now is I'm the founder and CEO of Partytrick. We are an app that inspires and empowers people to host gatherings, whether it's a brunch, a barbecue, a birthday party, a girls' night in, a movie night. We're doing a fun Oscars party. Obviously just, any celebration. If there are food, beverage, and people around, we're all about the celebration.
Oh, I love it. I always say our house is a revolving door where we live. There's a joke that we have this thing called the hot sheet syndrome because our guests are so frequent that the sheets don't have time to cool down.
Oh my God, I love that. I love it.
Because people coming and going. And I always say I'm the worst hostess. People say, why? It's because we're so busy that we don't have time to make the perfect charcuterie board or put up decorations or get like matching china set. We just make it happen. So we make it all about the conversation and connecting. However, I have a deep level of appreciation for people that can not only do that, but actually have something that's memorable and it's worth the photos and it's Instagrammable.
Well, while Instagrammable and the photos are amazing, honestly, what you're doing and just getting people together, that's what's the most memorable. Again, after 16 plus years of throwing over the top events, people don't really remember that much. They don't remember the china. What they remember, it's that great Maya Angelou quote, right? They remember how you make them feel. They remember the time, the laughs, the memories, the conversation. Like you could serve steak or you could serve lobster, and obviously both are lovely, but people aren't going to remember. They're going to remember how they felt around you. And so, while we want to make it Instagrammable and beautiful, it's really just getting people together. That's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, but still, it's always nice to have a little umbrella in all of your cocktails.
That little extra flair, it's the intentionality. It goes a long way. It's the bathroom candle, the guest towel in the bathroom people don't think about, but people are aware of when you have it.
Yes, exactly. It's the intentionality. I feel like when you go to a place and they have gathered people and they've actually put in the effort to like making it fun and exciting, it makes me feel more like, I don't want to say more wanted, but more like seen and heard because I'm going to a place and they wanted to entertain.
Completely. And I think so many people don't, right? Like you have this fear of judgment, fear of being, it's that fear of judgment or not being able to keep up with the Joneses, but really people just want to be wanted. And if you can get over the, oh my goodness, my couch doesn't have the perfect throw pillows on it, or my table is not perfect, but realize that people are coming to see you, not your throw pillows, that's amazing.
It's true. And there's always nothing wrong with a good throw pillow. So you've been in this event space for so long, and now you have a Saas company. What prompted you to go from service to Saas?
I have loved creating these experiences, and I have two young children. I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. I unfortunately had a very, pivotal moment during the pandemic when I lost the ability to throw gatherings. And, after that, this is relatively emotional. My father passed that middle of that summer. And it really caused us to reevaluate our life. I say our because I'm talking about my brother and my sister. And my father was the ultimate host. So again, we all kind of ended up in industries that impact how people gather. And so I looked back, I stopped, I'm like, okay, my father wasn't around a ton because he was always busy working. I'm away from my children a lot of these weekends. And while I create amazing memories for some very lucky couples and some very lucky guests that get to come, I want to give back. I want to teach what I know, and I want to teach it to millions of people. And I want to give them, the ability to have a planner in their pocket. Like, I don't want it to just be you have to hire an event planner to have a fabulous party. You should have access on your phone, so we are your party trick now. And so we took a service business and something that's typically a luxury service business and really reevaluated and created something that hasn't been created. I think, losing the ability to throw events, losing my father, and thinking about what's the impact I want to have on the world and what's the impact I want for my family and how do I want this next, chapter of my life to go, really led me to dream bigger. And there's never the right time to start a new company. There's never the right time to do really anything. But at the same point, you just get out there and to steal it from Nike, go do it, dream bigger, and always constantly question. Again, my children are little, so it's about being curious. So I chose something in the service industry. I wanted to then have a larger impact. Service industry is very hard to scale. Fortunately, I have the curiosity and just probably delusional ability to just jump in and create something new compared to just, keeping with what I knew.
Well, that's what entrepreneurship is about, is to be a little crazy.
Oh, a little bit crazy. It's the explorer versus the traveler, right? Like charting uncharted waters. That's the scary part. And exciting and amazing part. Yeah.
Yes. And the losing your hair, losing your sleep, losing friends. It's crazy. So,
yeah.
And here's the thing, like, I don't want to say a service-based business is always easier to start, but generally it is.
Very much
so. And so now you have all this experience, which obviously you've seen this kind of hole in the marketplace of we need this, because now you're making this more accessible to all people, not only physically, but financially accessible.
Completely. I mean, the average planner, these are weird numbers, but we'll go for it. The average fee for a planner is like $5,000 for just a social event. Which is kind of expensive. I mean, most people aren't going to hire a planner to do a first birthday party. Maybe some would. Not everyone. That's not the masses. It's very similar with interior design. It's an industry. I mean, you think about wedding planners. When I was planning at the peak, we would charge over 6 figures for a wedding. That's crazy. A lot of people don't even spend 6 figures on a wedding. That is not attainable to the masses. It's just not. So now we can create something that, we're less... I'm trying to think of how to say this in a nice way without saying the number. We're less than what you would pay going out to dinner to plan a year's plus worth of events. And we write custom events for our clients right now. And you can do it for less the cost of going out to dinner. It's amazing. I really want every single person, not just the people who can afford to throw that monstrous wedding. We want everyone.
Yeah. Oh, you have to meet a guest I had on the show. She has, it's Christina Schlegel. She has the Make Bake company, and it's like edible sticker cake decorations.
Oh my God, I actually listened to that one. I love it. I looked at her company right after. Yes, oh my God, that was such a good podcast. Props to you guys, go. Yeah, I would love to connect with her. I actually started following her company right after I heard her.
Yeah, that was an awesome story too.
Yeah.
I love the story how she had like 15,000 stickers. Yeah. Right as COVID happened, I was like, I would just sit in my room and I'd eat them.
My kids would go nuts. They would love that.
Know,
so,
right?
Totally.
So what I love about this and why this matters is because you both were so ingrained into an industry and you're like, wow, there's a massive opportunity here. And you're like, I'm going to go for it. And what was the most intimidating part in going from that service to the Saas?
Well, I think it's jumping into that unknown. I knew what I was doing so well. I knew my vendors, I knew my team. It honestly was, again, it got back to the easy. It was judged it's an industry that was judged a lot. So it was scary to leave something that was known, even though that was great to leave the judgment, to jump into something else that honestly still has the judgment in a different way, and it's jumping into the unknown. I think there's similarities across, right? Like we, as a planner, you're managing the chaos. You're identifying all the things that are going to go wrong, and that's really helpful across whatever industry. So as I jumped into something that was unknown, I realized I had no idea what those things were going to be, right? I didn't know all the areas that would go wrong, so it's looking and finding the experts. Just like when I was planning an event, it was going and finding the audiovisual expert before I knew a ton about AV. So there's some similarity, but it, so all over the place. I mean, such a scary leap, but a big one I'm glad I took.
So you mentioned something about like the shame in the industry, because that's something you and I connect on with, like you being in PR and you being in event planning. You'd think that J-Lo would have popularized being a wedding planner,
right? Oh my God. I mean, people love the idea of it, but they think it's so cute and like fun little hobby job. And I cannot tell you how many people are like, that must be so fun. Or my family members who, when we weren't producing events, are like, well, what do you do? Like, you must just be like getting your nails done all day. Or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. By the time you get around to it. So it's a really judged, like, PR industry, but also an insanely stressful one that people it's misunderstood. People don't understand it always.
Totally misunderstood.
Yeah, you get
and
that.
Misrepresented too. And
Very
I think
much so.
My interpretation of it is that it's such a feminine industry that, think about it, if it was male dominated, there'd probably be a different perspective of it. But it's what people don't understand is like everything that goes in behind the scenes. Because with the event planning, most people just see the event, but they don't realize it took a year to get to that point.
Completely.
And they're just like, okay, catering, this, that, photographer, check, no problem. I could do that in an afternoon.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And then it's, I was speaking with someone the other day and they don't want to hire someone. I'm like, do you really want to deal with it on the day of when, all the problems start falling and the band, their car breaks down and they're 3 hours away, or a flight gets diverted, or there's a mudslide. And so the chaos on a really high emotional and very expensive day is something that people don't think about. They just, they're like, oh, let's pick out some pretty flowers. So it's managing the chaos behind the scenes and making it look effortless. And again, it's PR too. You're making everyone else and putting out all the bombs. And, I used to joke with the kids. I'm like, yeah, mommy's a firefighter in her own way. I bet you can relate to that as well.
Yeah, it's all the smoke and fire you can't see, but you can feel it. You can feel the burn.
Totally. I think also as women, we have to approach things in a very delicate fashion, right? And we can't behave or we can't be as direct, potentially, as some of our male counterparts without being labeled in labels that we probably don't want to be labeled with. And so especially, again, it's a feminine industry. If you come across too bossy, that doesn't go over very well, but you also have to boss a ton of people around. So it's a very hard line to navigate.
Yes. Okay. So do you still do event planning?
I'm doing a little, not much. I mean, we're doing some events with Partytrick, but with Bluebird, we have one or two that I have contractors that are finishing up this year. But it's really, for me now, full effort and, 95% of my professional efforts on Partytrick, and then kind of tying up these loose ends and educating other planners is really what this next chapter. Again, it's this empowerment phase and teaching others to do versus me just doing it for clients at this point.
Okay, so then tell us a little bit how Partytrick, the app, works.
Yeah. So again, as you know, I've been in events, and the way I think about events are broken down into 3 parts. There's the what it looks like, which again, I think everyone can relate to. Like, what does your table look like? It's what you go and spend hours on Pinterest finding, and then typically you end up in Pinterest fail. Or you don't throw the party because it's too overwhelming. There's the plan, there's the details, the food, the beverage, the music, how you're inviting people, what you're wearing. And then there's the execution component. So in short form, event design, event planning, and event production. So Partytrick, we are membership based, and we have tons of different themes. We'll also write custom parties. You can pick and choose, but we've made our platform really interactive. So it has those 3 sections, and it's, curated looks, curated food, beverage, the playlist that you would want to play, not just a standard old what you'd put on Spotify when you have friends coming over. And then my favorite feature is this DIY the timeline feature. And with it, Renee, if you were hosting something in 3 weeks, you'd start getting reminders via email and SMS that say, hey, it's 2 weeks out, like you'll get this in a few days, invite your friends, 10 days out, order the decor that you would want. The morning of, you'll get a reminder to like take out the garbage and empty the dishwasher, things that are going to set you up for success. Again, it's like having a planner. It's the things that we would do for people. And so, all of these years in a large scale event production set me up to really create something that is this super holistic plan for people. So it's easy. Like you can know that your decor is going to match your food, is going to match your music, and not have any of that stressful component of like, does this work or does this not work?
Oh, that's so cool. Wow, you can make anybody look good.
That's the goal. The goal is like someone who would rather go, get on a plane and fly and like totally far away or go to the dentist. We want them to have a fun time having this experience.
Yes. So who's the end user?
Oh, there's so many, which is good and bad. The end user.
Am I like?
You'd be a great.
Like,
yeah, totally. Yeah. So I would say someone who's never hosted, someone who's hosted a fair amount. I would say our target is someone who's in that hosting era. So they're just starting to get married. They're that 25 to maybe say 32 is our initial, because then we stay with them for a nice long time. They're in the momentum of throwing events that they might not be like. It's hard to get someone to start out of the blue. So we start there. But as a mom, this is the perfect product for kids' parties. It's the perfect product if you have, a spouse or partner who decides to invite people over last minute and you have to deal with it. Like how to handle that person.
I'm married to that person.
Right?
I decided to host a 30-plus person concert in our house.
And give you very little notice, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know these people. What do I do? Yeah. He's like, don't worry, just show up. No, it doesn't work like that.
Totally doesn't. So we make it easy. Like in that scenario, I have a friend who's like an expert hostess, and she can style it really beautifully. But she uses our DIY feature every Friday night. And so she gets the timed reminders because she knows that it means that she won't forget to, again, light that bathroom candle or turn on music before. If you're running around like crazy, I would say, like, as a mom, this is like such an amazing product because, again, if kids are running around, you forget. And then you go into the party feeling stressed. Like you might forget the simplest little detail that you had planned. And a relaxed hostess or host, they really set the tone for the party. I used to think about this, like, if a bride and groom are dancing, their friends are going to dance. If they're sitting, their friends are typically going to sit. They're going to read you, your guests who are coming over, read your energy. No one wants to go somewhere where someone's like totally stressed out the whole time and just like that. It's contagious, and that's not a good like level of contagiousness that we want. We want the happy vibes.
No, we used to host a lot of dinners and stuff, and it got to the point where I didn't get a chance to actually connect with the guests because I was too busy cooking and cleaning.
Yeah.
And I don't like cooking. And so
I'm right there with you.
Hey, why don't we just hire a chef who loves doing the cooking part, let him do his artistry. I can have a glass of wine with my friends. Perfect, because at the end of the day, it ends up costing the same.
Yeah. Well, no, when you think about the food prep, and I'll say, Renee, I'm like right there with you. I'm not a big fan of cooking. I actually love cleaning. So it was one of those things where I have no problem organizing and cleaning up after a party, but cooking and prep. So we have a ton of options for how to turn even a fancy dinner party into a takeout party, and how like all of those hacks for the people who don't want to cook, but they also don't want to hire a chef because maybe they don't know one, they're not in a position to do so. Like, how do you still make it look good when you actually don't like the legwork? Like, if you don't know how to set the table, we teach you basically how to make something that would be Instagrammable. Even if it's just a really cute ice cube that you put in your cocktail, like almost anyone can do that. And then a ton of candles, sweet, simple, like and easy. We want to keep it stress-free. Yeah.
So is there a geographical, or like anybody in the world
no,
can download that?
Anyone can download it right now. We are just web-based at the moment. We are building out our mobile app. We are like legally restricted to the US, but that's just in terms of what we can promote. So actually, North America, let's reframe. And yeah, at this point, anyone can use it. And because we don't provide on-site services, we do have like a support section. So if you were to look for a bartender in your area or a chef, we do have kind of here's where you would go look. But because, we're web-based, we can help people anywhere, which is amazing.
That's so cool. Okay, so we have a baby shower tomorrow in less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Could your app help with that?
Oh, completely.
Wow.
Even if it's just conversation starters, the playlist, the reminders would be, you could literally go on right now, sign into a member portal, put the event date in, and click and get it going, and you wouldn't be able to get potentially some of the products in time, but we'll have DIY hacks as well as, I had that actually happen last weekend. I had a girlfriend reach out, and they were hosting a baby shower, and it was a little over the top. She's like, I need ideas for this. I have one day. I'm like, all right, go, here it is. So it's great. So you don't have to Google around. You know, we curate the best of what's there.
My God. That's the hard part, I think, is like there's so much like options and opportunities. You get the shiny object syndrome, and you're like, now what do I do? Like, I like all of these options. I like the blue and the orange, but then I like the pink and the white, but I like this playlist and I want that dessert. And you're just like, no, this is it.
This is exactly, like, here are the two things, pick, choose, go. You know, I think also, and I kind of was just thinking about this as you're talking about it, I think we get stuck in this position of hosting so much, but we also have so many other things in our day-to-day life. Whether it's kids, I mean, whether it's 4 companies that you're running at the same time, living in different places, we kind of, as women, end up in this position where it still falls on our shoulders. And hosting and entertaining, and maybe, and I hate, it sounds stereotypical, so maybe like the husband loves to grill. Again, there's a stereotype, right? But he's like, oh, let's just do these things. It always falls on the woman's shoulders while we're still running other really stressful things. And events, hands down, are very stressful, but people don't realize it. So going back to, like, you know, you're being in PR and being in the events industry, there are all these haters don't realize how stressful it is. Having to host these events, while they're joyous and they're amazing celebrations, they are stressful. And we want to remove that. And we want to make it easier for women all the way around, because community is everything. You know, it really is. It's how from a mental health to how we get our next jobs. Like, it's building your network. So
network is everything. Network
it is
your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about like the haters, right?
Yeah.
And there's haters in the industry, and maybe not so much like what you've created, which I think is so incredible. I can't wait to jump on and start using it. But in the event space, in the PR space, we see it. I can tell you for hours stories I've experienced, because I used to run an agency that worked with funded tech companies, which were all a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
Young bros that got millions of dollars, and now they're like, I got to spend this. But, you know, it was so interesting. So tell us, how did you manage and deal with those haters?
There are haters everywhere. It's funny, I was having a conversation this morning about actually another planner who is a hater of me as a planner, not even in the tech space. So, and it's like, come on, let's all come on, community over competition in a way, all boats rise together. But it's just realizing, in a way, it doesn't matter. You're always gonna have haters. And if you can sit in yourself and sit in the comment, it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't impact, and have that confidence and self-awareness that, like, let it come at you and then keep it moving on. I mean, I think about, you're never going to fight them. You're never going to convince them. Do everything to convince yourself that you are who you need to be, and to get to those feelings for yourself. But ride that wave instead of letting it be a brick wall that you're running into over and over. And some people are going to love you, and you're going to be on top of the wave. And sometimes you're at the bottom, but you don't need to be in the water. You can just, like, ride the surfboard up and over it. And I know that sounds like a little woo-woo, but it's really helpful to realize that's life. You're always going to have people who are going to try to push you down and knock you down. If you can just hold your balance, stay who you are, and realize no one knows what anyone else does. I'm sure you realize this. Like, even some of my best friends, they've been friends forever. I generally know what they do. They generally know what I do. They make judgment. Maybe I make judgment on them or not based on what it is, right? Like, that's just human nature. But at the same point, if you realize these haters have no idea what you're doing, or they're jealous of what you're doing. Maybe you took a leap, and maybe you started something and they're jealous because they couldn't have done that. They're too scared. Like, the haters, it means more about them than you, in my mind, typically.
Didn't Rachel Hollis say someone else's opinion of you is none of your business?
Yeah, kind of. I think she did.
And what she means by that is, like, it's because it's from their trauma. It's their lens, and it might be right, it might be wrong. But I feel like when you get those haters, it's almost like you've made it. The other day, actually last week, there was a fake Renee Warren account on Instagram.
Woohoo!
All my friends were like,
yeah,
exactly.
I made it.
They're like, for you made it, Renee, you made it. Someone's trying to be you. I'm like, wow, how scary is it that people can do that? But it was funny. Now, I actually just launched, so I'm taking all of my recordings, my podcast video recordings now, and making shorts, as well as putting the entire episode up on YouTube.
Love it.
And there's something to be said about people listening to you, but when they actually see you in a video, it's a totally different level. And the first few videos, even just the shorts we put out, the comments that people were leaving. And I'm like, there's a dude that's really, he needs to heal. He's traumatized behind this like random name who's telling me that I'm the worst mom in the world because I choose to work over staying at home with my kids. And I'm like, it already pains me to think that I'm away from my kids during the day, doing what I love, but still, these people show up. And one of my best friends, Anna, during COVID, she had a different perspective on the vaccine, whatever. I'm not going to go into this. But she still spoke out. And I thought, I might not agree with her, but I thought it was beautiful. And I said, but you are facing, like, the world has been divided in half on this. You're facing half the people that are going to completely disagree with you. What do you do? She goes, oh, I just delete their comments and then I block them. She's like, I get so many of these people leaving these terrible comments that after a while, this just all kind of blurs into one and you just get jaded. You're like, meh. I'm like, oh, you can delete them and you can block these people? I thought we were supposed to be strong and proud and face these demons. She's like, no, don't let them waste your energy. That's what it was. It was don't let them waste your energy.
Yeah, it's don't let them get in your space and ruin your day. I remember, God, a few years ago, I'd have days ruined if someone said something mean or I got a bad review or I was worried about, and it was not real. It was fake. And I actually had an incident where, again, community's everything, relationships, everything. I love my team and my employees. And when I get to the point where I realize that's not going the right way, I have a hard time firing. It's something that I'm learning to do, right? So I had to fire someone last week, and that was a really hard thing, really, really uncomfortable. And she got really angry. And I understand, but she started slamming stuff on all of my social accounts, on the multiple businesses. Her fiance did, and I'm like, this is not about me. This wasn't the right thing, and this isn't the right energy, and right? So we have blind haters, and then we have the haters that are close. And being able to block, be quiet, realize this is her reacting, this is more about her than me right now. This wasn't if it's not right for me, it's not right for her, and odds are, there's a reason why you're getting to that separation point. The close haters are sometimes harder than the far away haters. Block, let it go, put up a little bubble, and let it bounce off. That's on them. And learn from it.
Most mature people get over it and they move on.
Yeah.
Right. Unless it's something completely atrocious. But
when you give the haters your energy, then they're winning. Don't give them your energy.
That's it. Mm-hmm. It's you're giving away your power to somebody who they themselves are traumatized by something. Yeah. And that's why they're leaving these remarks. So that's a really good point. And in these moments, I often find myself, but I also find women in my community, people that I work with and coach, they start retracting. They stop leaning into the power. They stop shying away from the spotlight because they're like, oh, they're just going to keep coming. And yes, they will keep coming. They always show up. So you have to become a better person and understand your boundaries and how you can face these people or not, so that they never get control of you. They never, ever get the power. And what I know in this is that the people that are doing better than you, typically your mentors or people that you admire, aren't ever going to be the ones that are leaving these comments.
No.
Most of these people are not even only chapters behind you, but books behind you. And they are, like you said it, maybe jealous, envious, or they said something that, you said something they disagreed with, and all of a sudden now you're this demon.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, again, it's learning, okay, if you did make a mistake, own the mistake, but hold your power, hold the boundary. I think planners, and I don't know as much in the PR world with this, we're people pleasers. So we take it really personally when people are not pleased with us or we cannot please them. And hold the boundary and realize you can't please everyone. And typically when that friction arises is, again, a moment of growth more than it is a moment to take a step back. So
it's totally a moment of growth. Like, I think about the comments I get now versus when I was like 25 years old. I would have locked myself in my bedroom with chips and ice cream and just cried for days. And now I'm just like, oh, that stings. I don't like that. Delete, move on. And sometimes it'll come back up. But now I think of these as like really great stories to tell. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Great stories to share of the stuff that people have said. It's like, wow, like, what is going on in your life that's so terrible that you actually have the time to leave a comment on my stuff?
Renee, I'm so sorry. I just paused for a second, but I think I got what you're saying.
So anyway, two last questions for
Yeah.
you. So you went from service, growing this in this incredible industry. By the way, can we all applaud planners, because it's one of the most stressful jobs out there, and we need you guys. But then you were like, hey, here's this opportunity, and you went from service to tech. Like, that's a huge leap. So how did you discover not only that, but what were the first steps you took to create this repeatable, scalable model?
Well, a few years ago, I started, actually, no, it was more than a few years ago. When I started having children, I started documenting everything, writing SOPs, creating workflows, and really leaning into a systemized business compared to just kind of a practice of like what my brain is going to remember and, loose guidelines. So it was actually, that was the first step. So to create something scalable, you have to have phenomenal like SOPs. You have to have great systems. It's the only way, right? Then you have to start identifying and getting curious. What do you know? What do you not know? And how can we challenge those assumptions? So for me, because I went from a service-based event business to like a tech-fueled event business, essentially, there's a lot that's the same, but again, there's a lot that's different. And putting those systems in place allowed me to kind of springboard and jump into tech a little bit easier and faster, because I was able to get people in my head faster about the event industry, because tech people don't get events typically. So it's been a really interesting thing working with developers who they just don't party the way that we used to party, or host gatherings the way I used to host gatherings. So starting it was go in, find advisors, find what you don't know, write a plan, use the systems, document what you can have, because you're trying to create something scalable. And so those systems, those SOPs, those templates, all of that is what is going to allow that to happen. Again, leaning into your community, asking for the support, asking for what you don't know. Then the standard business stuff. Write a business plan. I know so many people are like, oh yeah, duh, but people don't do it. They're like, oh, it's a step I should do. Go in, do it. It's going to help identify those holes that you don't know that you have. And so for me, as I jumped into an industry I didn't know, that was where I started finding the questions to ask. I literally would be prompted of like, wow, I don't understand how this works. Who do I know that knows something about this? And the whole network effect from there is really what led to kind of pulling these pieces together. I think the nice thing, we're in this really lean, nimble startup phase. We can move and we can pivot. I think the other thing is you go from event and service and event into tech, and customer feedback is important no matter what, but it's really different. And so going back to square one and getting that customer feedback, what are the features that are most helpful, especially when it's a product people don't know because it doesn't exist. It's like, okay, let's just frame this as an online event planner, but it's actually not, because we'll do something custom, but there's no human interaction and touch. That's a little bit scary, but it's easy when you break it down. What do you like about events? What do you not like? Why don't you? Where do you go look for inspiration? What are the types of things? Most people say they don't party, right? They say, well, I don't throw parties. So we would always go back and combat and say, well, do you ever have friends over for brunch or dinner? And maybe it's not a party. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I guess so. Well, do you have friends over for the Super Bowl? Yes, you're right. You actually are throwing parties. These are gatherings. So those areas in that market research allowed us to build the product in a way that it's a very different shape than what I thought it was going to be. And again, I don't think anyone can ever tell you enough. The more customer feedback, the better when switching. It really is what allows you to kind of get to the masses, because scalable business needs to be applicable to the masses. So you need to talk to the masses. 3 people is not a data set.
No, actually, I took my undergrad in sociology, and you actually have to have at least 100 recipients to have a what's it called? Like an act, essentially to make the survey worthwhile.
Oh yeah,
so
completely. Like it's completely an unbiased result, and the chart that's going to give you the data and all the various data points you need to that would direct you, and the feedback. Yeah.
So I want to touch on the scalability too, because people say you can't scale service, but I think there are ways you can, and you actually highlighted perfectly is creating systems and automating as much as you can. Even I guess before we started recording, how you said, and I'm just gonna pat myself on the back because you're on a podcast.
Oh my God,
right now.
yes, and you should pat yourself on the back all day long for how you've done this. Brag yourself now.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Virginia said that I had one of the best onboarding journeys for somebody being a guest on my show.
Yeah.
And my interpretation of that is I want it to be easy for you to just show up and have a good time with me, but I wanted to create something that I want. And I've been guests on many people's shows, and some of the journey is just terrible. And like there's no reminders, there's no intake forms, there's like, hey, just shoot me over your bio when you get a chance. It's like everything needs to be streamlined and automated as much as possible.
Yeah.
So yes, you can automate the crap out of your service-based business, and now especially with AI, there's so much more you can do, so that the stuff that's like the menial tasks, the admin stuff, is so automated that you're only focusing on the thing that you're really, really good at.
Completely.
You're genius.
Yep. Which again allows you to expand your reach and scale it that much more for sure. Like love systems. I live, breathe, die by them.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you got to go pick up your kids, but I have one last question for you.
Yes.
When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that for you?
Oh, I should have had this one prepared, but I love the authenticity behind it. For me, being a wild woman is like letting any perception of who you need to be go away and just being you and the authentic you, because that is like the most stripped down, like natural version, and that's wild, right? And just living in that authenticity and not like putting yourself in a box. So there's my long answer for it.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Virginia, if people want to go online to find you, where can they go?
So come check us out at partytrick.com, on Instagram at Partytrick, and TikTok Partytrick with a little underscore at the end, which I'm sure will be in show notes. And we cannot wait to have you celebrate with us.
Yay! Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Renee, thank you so much. I so enjoyed talking with you. And again, your automations are phenomenal. So I love it. Big props.